Thing about them.
I tried. I was standing right here. Oh, you tried to be brief. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. This morning, we released the results of a special investigation into the Tama County Human Resources Department. Excuse me, Tama County Conservation. It was requested by, I'm going to just start that one over. We released the findings into a special investigation into Tama County Conservation. The review was requested by county officials about financial irregularities involving the former HR manager. It covered January 2020 through February 2025 when she was terminated. Overall, we found $250,000 in questioned, improper, and unsupported disbursements. That included $81,000 in American Rescue Plan funds, a little over $1,000 in improper disbursements, and then a big chunk, the biggest chunk, $168,000 in unsupported transactions. They had to do with substance abuse funds, mental health funds, and health insurance funds, as well as purchases. The most difficult piece of this investigation for us was simply the lack of records. That made it impossible for us to determine if all the funds were misused versus potentially being put to a public use without support for it. There were some purchases of a personal nature located like fishing gear or the use of a public account that doesn't have to pay taxes to purchase a generator for Ms. Wise's home that are, of course, improper. And then in addition to that, health insurance payments that were made without board approval, meaning someone was getting health insurance, but the board of supervisors had not actually approved that benefit for that person. Again, this report, like most of our reports, underscores the need for effective oversight. We have got to make sure that we've got checks and balances operating at the local level. It also outlines the need for accountability and transparency. We always want to make sure that public funds are going to a public use, and when they don't, that is always going to undermine trust. And it's an important moment for our office to be able to step in and tell the public, to the degree that we can determine it, what exactly is going on. Our recommendations including making sure that you have independent review of bank reconciliations, making sure that anytime money is being spent, that you have a disbursement, that you're getting the invoice for that, that is maintained so you can see what that money is being spent for. formal policies for credit card use and reimbursements, as well as clear policies and limits on food expenditures and event expenditures. We send copies of this report as always to the Tama County Attorney's Office, the Tama County Sheriff, the Attorney General's Office, and the Division of Criminal Investigation. Happy to take any questions.
What has the response been?
We released it just today, so the folks that got this report are going to have to dig in and give it a look, and they'll have to make their determinations in the course of their own business there.
You talk frequently about checks and balances. How and why were those missing in this case?
Certainly a piece of this, as it is in many more rural areas in Iowa, was simply a lack of oversight. I think a lot of this comes down to trust. People say, oh, I know you, I trust you, you wouldn't do anything wrong. And that leads that person into temptation because no one is looking to make sure that they're actually doing things right. So for example, in this case, Ms. Wise was the sole authorized check signer for the health insurance fund. That meant that she was the only one with authority there. And so rather than having that role divided into another person, she really had the keys to the kingdom in that sense. But in addition to that, credit card statements weren't getting reviewed on a regular basis. They should be. Purchases were not getting pre-approved. They should be. And they did not have a formal policy in place for a lot of different things like eye care reimbursement. This is stuff that is pretty simple to do. Oftentimes the Iowa State Association of Counties or the League of Cities will have model forms for pretty much every policy you could want. And all it really takes to have a policy is to, if you want, take their model form and adopt that. Just vote it up, and then you've got one. Of course, you can, you'd have to have multiple readings. You can adjust it for yourself, but it's always easy to find those things and to make sure that they're implemented so that you have clarity in terms of what the rules are for any kind of disbursement.
And I'm sorry if you already addressed this, but was this initiated by your office or was this?
We are not the regular Tama County auditor. So this was a special investigation. It was initiated when it was requested by employees in Tama County, or I shouldn't say employees, I should say we got a qualifying request from the county where they noticed some strange invoices. This is kind of a classic story. I actually mentioned this on an interview the other day. There was a case once where when I was assistant attorney general, I ended up prosecuting a guy whose scheme and practices unraveled when someone was standing in someone else's office waiting for them to do something and just happened to pick up an invoice that was sitting on the desk and read it and go, well, that can't be right because I know that that wasn't true. This person wasn't there. And this is the similar situation here. People were looking at some of these invoices and noticed one for a generator. Well, that was a generator purchased for Ms. Wise's home, probably through the county's card, because then they don't have to pay taxes on it. That would say for $600 in that situation. It's a good chunk of change, but you can't do that. That's not an appropriate use of county funds. So when they noticed that, they dug in a little bit and then contacted our office.
We have a question on Zoom. Do you believe Ms. Wise should face criminal charges based on her?
We don't make recommendations in the auditor's office as to whether or not anyone should face criminal charges. This office has never traditionally done that. We had a debate about it when I came in because obviously my prior work was 7 years of looking at state auditors' investigations and deciding whether or not someone should face charges. We decided at the end of the day, we didn't want to set that precedent. But I don't think, we know it's not our job. And we didn't think that starting to direct the Attorney General's office or county attorneys as to what they should be doing would set a good precedent for the office, given that we have never done it in the past. I will say this, in any case, whether it's a case that comes out of our office or somewhere else, I think it's important that people who steal from taxpayers have to go to prison. I have said this over and over again. If we saw that that was the law in the state of Iowa, fewer people would take advantage of their access to tax dollars because they would be more concerned about the consequences that they would face after the fact. All righty. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.